Well, let's discuss real love. We're going to discuss that today and how to make love last. Up next on Education Matters with me, Donna Moore Wesby. Don't change that dial. Welcome inside a brand new segment of Education Matters. My name is Donna Moore Westby, your host of Education Matters, where we're connecting you to the world of education one step at a time. Yes, it is the time for lovers. I have on my red and I'm ready to talk about love. It's a wonderful topic. And today we have with us Mr. Roger Rollins, so you're going to want to stay tuned during the entire broadcast today. Well, of course, we'd like to thank the sponsors of Education Matters, and they are Bryant Insurance Agency out of Aiken, South Carolina, Magnolia Medical Center with Dr. Margot Muniz, an office in Aiken, and a brand new office in Barnwell, South Carolina, where she is open there on Mondays. Westby's Products and Services, creator of Dawn Seasoning Delight, all-purpose seasoning and marinade. The Barner Group, Educational Associates, providing free after-school tutoring throughout the year. Also, the Martial Arts Academy, under the direction of Mr. Andrew Blocker. And then finally, the Will Lou Gray Opportunity School out of West Columbia, helping to change the lives of our students in South Carolina every day. So appreciative to all of our sponsors, and we sure hope to get more sponsors to carry us through the year 2012. All right? Well, I know some of you are very happy because you enjoyed your time on Valentine's Day. Well, every day is Valentine's Day for me because it's another day that I get to wake up and God has given me another chance to not only be loved, but to show love. And we're going to talk about that today. But before we get into that topic, I do have a couple of quick reminders for you. Interim reports. Yes, I know there are some children going, cut it, cut time out. But parents, you need to know interim reports will be issued for Aiken County students on Thursday, February the 16th. Now, sometimes the teachers will issue those reports a couple of days early and maybe a couple of days later, but just know within our broadcast coverage area, you should be receiving interim reports for your children, all right, to let you know how they're doing at the halfway point of the semester, okay? So make sure you check those book bags. They may be balled up in a little corner if the child didn't do well. If you are a student and you're watching, then strive to do better next time, okay? All right, very good. So make sure you look for those interim reports. Next message for you. President's Day is Monday, February the 20th. Yes, for most of the school districts listening or watching this broadcast, that will be a school holiday. Some of you will be off. Take a moment as a family to do some research and find out the significance of President's Day, okay? But just wanted to remind you that that is a holiday, Monday, February the 20th. So make sure you make arrangements for your children if you have to work, all right? Those are your reminders for today. Now it's time for the Education Matters Tip of the Week. Every week we do provide you with a tip, and this one actually is very personal this week. As you well know, I talk about him often. My son is a senior in high school, and I believe he's suffering from a little condition that I want to tell you about, and maybe you need to look for it as well. If your child is a senior in high school, he or she may start to experience what's affectionately known as senioritis. You didn't experience that, did you, Miss Cindy? Well, many of us did. Watch for those signs like exhaustion, desire to skip school, losing focus, etc. All right? Pay attention to some of these signs because it very well could be that they're just overwhelmed, okay? Nothing real serious. You can handle it. Just allow your child to talk to you, listen, and let the child vent some, all right? It's just stress sometimes building up. Then there's also the eagerness of graduation. They see it across the horizon, but it's not coming quickly enough, all right? Make sure your child is well rested and enjoys some downtime. We all need some downtime, all right? So take care of that senioritis. That's just a little medicine there for your child, and then it can make the whole family feel a lot better, okay? That is this week's tip of the week. That sound means it's Word of the Week time inside of Education Matters. You can see I'm having fun all by myself. Oh, Lord. This week's Word of the Week is a good word. It's one that I don't use that often, actually, and I'm going to start. Hopefully, you will utilize this word. It is panoramic. Panoramic. P-A-N-O-R-A-M-I-C. Panoramic is an adjective, and it means describing a comprehensive picture of a chain of events or a specific subject, okay? I'll use panoramic in a sentence for you. As one continues to study Black history, a panoramic view of the contributions made to American history becomes obvious, all right? If you had the opportunity to watch last week's Education Matters, you know that many contributions were made by Blacks to the building of this country, but actually all of us, all right, at some point in time in life made this country great and made it what it is. So panoramic is our word of the week. Use that word of the week. As a reminder, you can find my tip of the week and word of the week on my website, which is www.edmat.com, all right? Make sure you check it out. I've got a couple of new articles up there. We update that website every week. After a few words from our sponsors, we'll talk with Roger Rollins as we share a wonderful discussion on making love last. You don't want to miss it. We'll be right back.
Total Women's Healthcare means treating the women physically, emotionally, and everything in between. At Magnolia Medical Women's Center, we treat and diagnose common and unusual medical problems related to female health. Magnolia Medical Center is a premium high-level obstetrics and gynecology clinic for women of all ages. Our clients receive the time they deserve without feeling rushed and unimportant. We are located in the Aiken Medical Center, 410 University Parkway in Aiken, Suite 2300. Call us today at 803-649-6366.
Need positive and constructive after-school activities for your children? Call the Martial Arts Academy in Aiken under the direction of International Olympic trainer Andrew Blocker. The Martial Arts Academy offers an award-winning approach to teaching Taekwondo. It's an effective approach to instilling discipline. The Martial Arts Academy also offers self-defense and fitness classes for all ages. Enroll today in this affordable program by calling 803-642-5723 or visit the studio at 2398 Whiskey Road in Aiken. The Martial Arts Academy, positively changing the lives of youth and adults.
Does your child or grandchild need help in reading or math, or can benefit from preparatory coursework for the HSAP, ACT, or SAT? If so, contact the Barner Group Educational Associates. Our staff specializes in formatting an individualized approach to assisting your child academically. We offer low-cost tutorial services and educational programs. Participants may qualify for free services. To learn more, call for Alicia Cuthbertson of the Barner Group Educational Associates, 1-888-TBG-3996.
Tired of hearing automated answering services when you have questions about auto, home, renters, motorcycle, or life insurance? Call the Bryant Insurance Agency, where you will always receive a representative ready to answer your questions and provide friendly customer service just for you. Call today for a quick quote at 803-642-8505 or visit us at 909 Daughtery Road in Aiken. Takia and her staff are ready to serve you.
Welcome back inside of the broadcast. Today, inside of Education Matters, we have a very familiar face, and that is Mr. Roger Rollins, who is the director of the Family and Marriage Coalition of Aiken. I let him know before the broadcast that I've given him a title, and he wasn't even aware of it. He is the Education Matters Family Life Contributor. So welcome inside of the broadcast.
Thank you, Donna. Good to be here. I'm glad I now have a title.
You
I'm
got
official,
it going
right?
on. That's right. But we are always thrilled to have you. You bring with you such wisdom and such an ease and comfort in your delivery. And today we're talking about a subject that is very near to my heart, and that is love. You know, we throw that word around so often, but I often wonder, do we really, really know what love is? And today we're going to talk about making love last. Let's start with the Word of God. What really is love?
Well, God has answered that very simply when he says in his word, God is love. Mm-hmm. He's put it very straightforward, and we can look at that on the surface and say, okay, I hear you, God, you're love. Then we begin to look at what that really means, and it's pretty hard to comprehend.
Yeah.
But if we look at what God really is, there are 2 points I like to make when I talk to people about God's love. Mm-hmm. Donna, one of them is, it is, and I'll use the word self-existing,
okay,
which basically means God loves us in spite of our behaviors. Mm. And if we can somehow demonstrate that kind of love towards our family, towards our children, towards our friends, we love them not because they've done something for us, mm-hmm. but simply because we have God's love in us. We have that ability to love that he has. And the second thing is, we can't earn that ourselves.
Yes.
It's not something I can generate. I can't generate love for you or for anyone else. God has to put that love in me. There are 2 definitions for God's love, really. One is agape love, mm-hmm. and the other is phileo. Phileo means basically friendly love, and I can love you in a friendly sort of a way. Mm-hmm. But the problem is that becomes conditional love.
Yeah.
That means basically I'll be your friend if you're my friend.
And as long as you do what I want,
as long as you make
say
me happy,
what I,
that's
right. Okay.
But God's love, the agape love, is the love that says, I'm going to love you, Donna, no matter what you do, no matter what you say or how you treat me, I'm going to love you. And that love that's what makes love last. That's the only kind of love that lasts. The other is temporary, it's conditional, it's based on whether or not you make me happy, as you said.
Right. Before we started this broadcast, I had my radio broadcast earlier, and one of the messages we tried to convey, which will essentially be the undercurrent of our tone here, is the only way we can truly understand what real love is, to experience it for ourselves as well as give it to someone else, is God must be in the midst of all that. The only way we can truly love in the right way is if it is coming from God. And just to throw some additional words at you to further explain what love is, and this comes from 1 Corinthians chapter 13, and you know, there's no better source for our discussion, particularly those of us who are believers in Christ, that it comes from the Word of God. And this is 1 Corinthians chapter 13, and I'll start at verse 4. Love is patient. Love is kind. It does not envy. It does not boast. It is not proud. It is not rude. It is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. Wow, it keeps no record of wrongs, husbands and wives. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. That's, with words like that, how can you not want it? How can you even not want to give it out?
It's very desirable to have that kind of love. The problem is the world tends to take that definition and change it to fit its own needs. It's like It's like the golden rule, which the Bible basically says is do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Mm-hmm. We take it and pervert it and we say do unto others so that they will do unto us. You know? We will treat
exactly
we will
right.
treat others good as long as they treat us
Yeah,
good.
yeah.
And unfortunately, that's the world's
That's the
definition
human
of
way.
love.
Uh-huh.
You know,
That's right.
and we get that nice gushy feeling that we call love.
Yeah.
When we look at the opposite sex and we say, wow, they're wonderful in all kinds of different ways,
Yeah.
and they're going to make me happy.
Yeah, yeah.
And God's love says, forget about that. I want to make them happy. I'm going to
Yeah.
do it. And that's the Bible says that the husband's primary responsibility is to take care of his wife no matter what that costs, even to the point of death. And that's why marriage really is God's definition on earth of his relationship with the church. God loved the church. He loves us so much that he demonstrated that agape love through what Christ did on the cross.
Yes.
And we as men are to do that for our wives. We are to love them with that same kind of unconditional, all-giving love.
Yes, and that's very difficult to do on our own. But when we have the Holy Spirit dwelling within us, then it's not as difficult as we make it out to be. And responding to your comment about how the world defines love, we can just look at how the world responds to Valentine's Day.
Right.
You know, if a young lady does not get flowers or chocolates or jewelry, or, you know, is not surprised at work for everybody to see, then, oh my gosh, you don't love me. Or, you know, our relationship is defined by what has taken place on that one day. I said earlier that I believe in our families we're suffering from the S&S disease, superficiality and selfishness, which we've talked about before on this broadcast, that selfishness piece. And the superficiality is, it's amazing to me, Mr. Rollins, how we are so consumed with impressing man and wanting to make sure man is pleased with our ways and sees us in a certain light, and we forget about the ultimate judge, which is God.
That's correct. Yes. And we can only have that appropriate relationship with our spouse on a horizontal level if our vertical relationship with
like
God
that.
is on top first.
I
That's
like
why
that.
we've got to start out, when we're talking about making love last,
Yes.
the first component has to be, what is our relationship with God? If we don't have a
Yes.
relationship with God, we cannot possibly have that kind of unforgiving, unconditional, all forgiving love.
Yes.
So the first thing is get to know God. And then, as Donna has added to this discussion,
I kind of took
like
an
that.
editorial liberty
Well,
there.
God's two commandments are love others as you love yourselves.
Yes.
If we can't love ourselves, I've seen that in lots of people.
Yes.
They have a very difficult time loving others because they don't love themselves. And if you don't love yourself, if you can't forgive yourself, how can you forgive others?
That's right.
You know, even though we can say, well, I'll forgive somebody else, but I just can't forgive myself, then I'm afraid we're caught in that trap, and we just really aren't truly forgiving others either if we can't
Yes.
forgive ourselves. So it is very important to know who we are in Christ and to know that he has created us. He loves us. If he can love us,
Yes.
there must be something. Well, I don't know about that. But we need to learn to love ourselves.
That's right.
And then when we can do that, then we're able to really, I think, be much more effective in loving and caring for our spouse. When we have a good
Truly.
feeling about our relationship with God and we know who we are in him, then our relationship with our spouse and our family and our friends
Yes.
is going to be so much better because it's no longer dependent upon us. It's dependent upon him.
That's right. It's not dependent on how we feel for the day,
Exactly.
What you did to make me happy. It's all about God. And you know, if you've ever met anyone who is always negative, or you know, have low self-esteem, or if they're in relationships that are abusive, mental or physical, or thoughts of suicide, those are issues with self-love. And when you already feel as if you don't deserve love, then everything about you that exudes from your very being is going to be contrary to love.
That's correct.
So you must get to know yourself, and the only way you can get to know yourself and love yourself is to understand who we are in God.
And to know that he has created us. The people that deny God, they have to somehow come up with a source for us. Where did we come from?
Yeah.
And if we came from chaos, then that's kind of where we exist, you know? And if if I look at a chaotic world, I said, do I really want to be like that? And can I expect a chaotic world to behave in a loving manner? Of course not. It's going to behave in a very random manner.
Yeah.
And yet God is not random. He is the creator God. He is the perfect God. He is the one that we can trust to enable us to love others the way they need to be loved, to care for ourselves because we know we are loved. If I have to, it takes so much pressure off of me to know that it's not my responsibility. It's God's responsibility through me to love others. I think about that when I talk to couples, and they try to understand the relationship of the husband and the wife. And a lot of couples, I think, misunderstand the authority of the family and the fact that there's God, there's the husband, there's the wife. But when wives finally recognize that, the freedom that they finally get when they realize, hey, it is not my responsibility to do everything right. It is not my responsibility for the family in a sense. It is the husband's responsibility. And so he's got to wear that mantle. Now that doesn't mean that the wife doesn't play an important part.
That's right.
That simply means that the buck stops there, as we've heard in the past. But the husband then can say, and buck stops up there with God. So I am responsible to God for my family.
Yeah.
And that really sets so much freedom in the family for them to be able to function in that unconditional fashion. You know, my wife no longer is going to love me if I treat her properly. She's going to love me because she has the love of God in her, and the same for me towards her.
And then she'll just pray for you to treat her properly.
I'll take all the prayer I can get, absolutely.
All right. Want to let you know right here before we go to point number 3 on Mr. Rogers' Making Love Last slide is if you would like to call in and make a comment or have a question for us today, our number here is 803-644-2357. Again, that's 803-644-2357. You don't necessarily have to give your name or anything. You can remain anonymous. But if you would like to make a comment or have a question, feel free to give us a call during the broadcast. Okay, marriage is all about relationship. Point number 3. Mr. Roger Rollins.
Yes, ma'am. The third point that I think is really important is to get to know your spouse. In a sense, it's to get to know each other. And when we work with couples in preparing them for marriage, what we try to do is to get them to know more about each other and how they can relate to each other in an acceptable fashion. And we use a lot of tools for that. And there are a couple of references that they're books that I will give to couples and suggest they read them through. One of them is called the 5 Love Languages. And a lot of people have heard about that. It's written by Gary Chapman. And in it, he talks about important things that we need to recognize about ourselves and how we can relate to one another. I think about, well, as you see, the words of affirmation, quality time, receiving gifts, acts of service, physical touch. Let's start at the bottom. Let's take physical touch.
Yeah, let's start there.
There are a lot of people that we'll call them huggers. A lot of people like to be hugged. Now I'll admit, that's a weakness on my part. I grew up in a family where hugging was a very traditional family up in the northeast, northwest, and people didn't hug there. It just
no wonder
wasn't.
You kind of stiffen up when I see you and I reach to hug. Okay.
But I'm trying to get over that now. You keep working on me, Donna.
Okay.
You keep give me those hugs, and I'll try to hug you back.
Okay.
But I don't necessarily have that gift in me, and there are some people who, when you know that, because as soon as you see them, they're going to come up and they're going to touch you on the shoulder. It's not an offensive touch. It's just touch on the shoulder, maybe on the arm.
Yeah.
And when they're talking with you, or they'll give you a big hug if they know you. And for those people, that's really important. And if you know people who are like that, then you can really brighten their day by giving them a hug when you see them, because that's their love gift, if you will. That's how you relate to people. There are others who you just have to recognize that's probably not their gift. You don't have to hug them every time you see them because they don't need that hug.
Yes.
They may appreciate it eventually. And we can continue to talk about these other love gifts. Act of service. I'm thinking of one couple where the wife, she loves to give gifts. Well, that's the gifts. Let's talk about the gifts, receiving gifts. She loves to give gifts. Whenever there's a birthday or a Valentine's Day or whatever, she's going to be giving a gift. Now, what does that tell me about the husband who's married to that wife? Should he give her a hug? Probably. But what's important, should he give her a gift at Valentine's Day?
Probably so.
Because that's what she's looking for. She's looking for a gift, not just a hug or not anything else so much as if he doesn't give me a gift, as you mentioned a moment ago, if he doesn't give me a gift, he must not love me anymore. You know, and so we have to understand that people react to each other in different ways. We can make each other's day in a lot of different ways. Some couples like just the quality time. An individual really likes just spend some time with me. You don't have to buy me a gift.
Yeah.
You know, we don't have to do anything particular together. Just let's sit together and we'll read our books. You know, let's spend an evening at home together.
Yes. So I don't think our world, our society, reinforces the value of that enough. It's now where everything is just so materialistic. If you're not getting something, if it's not money or jewelry or whatever this world places of value, then your relationship must not be whole or complete, or you're lacking in some way. And I believe that's where another facet of superficiality is. We have become so consumed with things that don't matter that we really miss the point of what our existence is all about. In my opinion, we miss the true beauty of the gifts we have every day, which are life, family, friends, just knowing God. And I believe as a part of our discussion today that in addition to talking about marriages and helping our families understand what healthy marriages are, that just helping people understand love in general will help make our world so much better. I know you've got plenty to say, but hold that thought, Mr. Roger Rollins, the Education Matters Family Life contributor. After a few words from our sponsor, we'll be back and we'll talk a little bit more about this thing called love. We'll be right back.
When it comes to grilling, I'm the man. Using Dawn seasoning delight, I'm the grill master.
My seasoning is available at Kroger, Bilo, Food Line, Reeds, and Harvest. Look for it on display in the meat department. Also visit seasoningdelight.com for information and recipes. Dawn Seasoning Delight. It's so good.
Dawn Seasoning Delight is so good.
The Will Gray Opportunity School has been serving the beautiful Midlands of South Carolina since 1921. Our mission has evolved over the years, and we now specialize in helping young people move past their obstacles in order to achieve success. We give students opportunities to lead, to develop social skills, to become active in their communities, and to taste success. Don't settle for less than the absolute best for your life. Contact us today to take the next step in your journey toward success.
Is your child struggling in the traditional classroom setting? Could a charter school be what you need? Well, next time on Education Matters, we'll introduce you to 2 local charter schools that might be viable options for you. Join me, Donna Moore Wesby, on Education Matters, right here on ASTV Channel 95.
If you are interested in becoming an individual or corporate sponsor of Education Matters or to receive sponsorship information, call Donna Moore Wesby at 803-507-6793 or send an email to dwesby@edmath.com.
Today, we're talking about making love last with the director of the Family and Marriage Coalition of Aiken, Mr. Roger Rollins, who also is a very dear friend to Education Matters, as we call him, our family life contributor. Again, if you would like to weigh in on today's conversation, feel free to give us a call here on 803-644-2357. All right, Mr. Roger Rollins, take it away. What's next for us?
Well, we were talking earlier about the fact that if we don't know God, we can't have that kind of unconditional love that really is what makes love last. If we don't have the unconditional love, then love is going to be temporary. It's going to be conditional based on how somebody else treats us. And then we looked at the fact that what is the definition of love? Now we asked that, and the simple definition from the Bible is simply God. God is love. Now that, in a sense, defines it, but more explains about where it comes from. But an important corollary to that, I think, is God is love, but love is not God. And I remember years ago talking with a couple about their relationships, and they said, they agreed that God is love, but they also said, but you can turn that around and say love is also God. The problem with that is, as we were talking a moment ago, the world tends to define love in lots of different ways. And if we say any one of those ways, then any one of that kind of love can be God. It gets back to, I'll use the word idolatry.
Yeah.
If I love money,
Yes.
then money becomes my God.
That's right.
If I love those things that give me pleasure, whatever that might be, you know, if that's sex, or if that's food, or whatever that is, that becomes my God. And I really focus on that being the most important part of my life. And God is saying, no, that's idolatry.
Yeah.
Even though we think of idolatry in the olden times of having some God that's just as an idol off on our shelf or something. Idols are anything we make them that take the place of God in our life and that drive us. So it's really important to recognize God is love, not love is God.
That's a great point.
I think one example of that is a fable by Aesop that I remember from years ago in school. It's called The Goose That Laid the Golden Egg.
Now, I didn't learn this fable, so
Didn't you learn this?
I did not.
Well, let me explain it to you.
Yeah,
Then. This
school me on this.
It's a very short fable. In fact, let me read it. A man and his wife owned a very special goose. Every day, the goose would lay a golden egg, which made the couple very rich. Just think, said the man's wife, if we could have all the golden eggs that are inside the goose, we could be richer much faster. You're right, said her husband. We wouldn't have to wait for the goose to lay her egg every day. So the couple killed the goose, cut her open, only to find that she was just like every other goose. She had no golden eggs inside of her at all, and they had no more golden eggs.
Oh, my goodness.
And I'm at that time, of course, I wasn't thinking what I'm thinking now, but as I think more about love and God's love, to me, maybe that's what Aesop was trying to tell us here, that instead of looking for the real thing, which is a relationship they had with the goose and nurturing the goose and taking care of the goose, because the goose was the source of their riches, they wanted the riches. The riches became their God.
Yes.
If we would recognize God or the golden goose, I don't know if you connect the two, if God is our golden goose, He is the one that gives us those riches.
That's right.
The love that's unconditional.
Yes.
But if we say, well, I don't want to wait upon God. I don't want to do things God's way. I don't want to love others when they don't love me. I don't want to forgive others.
On it.
You know, and we could preach on this for quite a while.
Yes, Lord.
But I don't want to do that. I want everything I want right now.
Yeah.
It's, as you were saying, our society today says, if you can't get it now, it's not worth getting. Go get it right now. Marriages, if you're not happy now, get out of it. Go find somebody else that will make you happy. God says, wait.
Yeah.
I remember, ever read the book Count of Monte Cristo?
No, sir.
It's a fascinating story. It's really good. But it ends with the Count telling a couple that he'd been working with. He was leaving, and they were looking forward to his coming back eventually, and they didn't know when he was coming back. And he said, remember two words, wait and hope. Well, now, you were reading from 1 Corinthians 13. That ends up by saying faith, hope, love, these three. Love is the greatest.
That's right.
But a lot of times we have to wait in order for God to build that kind of unconditional love in us.
Yes.
It doesn't come instantaneously.
Right.
Just because I don't feel particularly happy with my spouse on a given day doesn't mean I shouldn't continue to love her.
Yes.
I've got to continue to love her. I've got to continue to show her that kind of care and concern. I think all of us have gone through times when we don't feel that love. And so what I found I have to do is I have to say, God, I need you to work in me and put that unconditional love back in me that I know needs to be there, because I'm trying to define love my way.
Right.
I'm trying to love her because she's been good to me, and maybe I don't feel like she's been as good to me as I think she should be.
Yeah,
So that love kind of dies, and then I say, no, God, put that unconditional love back in me, that I can love her no matter what, just like you love me.
And
no
that's
matter
that,
what.
and I would say at that point, that's the other love you spoke about, not the agape love, but the friendly
filial
love.
Right.
And we have to be very, very careful. And I think it's simple, but we allow the pressures of the world and what the world views as important to cloud our minds. And if we're not careful, if we're not diligent in putting forth the effort in our marriages and our relationships and our families, with the core being love, then they will fall apart and they will not last. And the whole genesis behind us wanting to have this discussion today is we're seeing so many problems in our world, in my opinion, exist because of the lack of love or the understanding of real love. And, whether it's greed or prejudices or racism or hatred or disunity, all those things come because of a lack of love. There's no way I can wish harm upon you if I love you the way that God loves me. And we've got to grow. That's a growth process. It doesn't come overnight, does it?
No, that's the difference between salvation and sanctification, if
All
you will.
right.
The one comes quick because God's done it all already. The other is His process in working us out. Life is not an end point. Life is a process.
Yes.
And we continue to go through that process until the end. So we just continue to get processed and we continue to grow closer to Him. I think about the tragedies that have occurred in our community lately, Donna.
Yes.
And I think a lot of that stems from individuals who grow up in a very unloving situation. A lot of it comes from gang behavior. And you know why our kids join gangs today? Because that's the only place they think they can get love.
Yes.
As the gang defines
and acceptance, that's right.
Yeah, they're accepted by the gang, at least for a little while, until they're into the gang and they're caught up in all that stuff again.
Right.
But that's where they go to get their love, because they're not getting it from the family.
That's right.
And if the family could just exhibit that kind of unconditional love for their children, just even this is Education Matters.
Right.
If a kid gets a C or an F, does the parent stop loving the kid? Well, I certainly hope not. But there may be times when we give our kids the feeling that unless you get a good grade, or unless you are the number one on the sports team, I don't love you anymore.
Yes.
There's a problem there.
That's right.
And the kids are going to go someplace else to get that unconditional love that they're looking for, that acceptance that they need. If they feel like they're accepted only because they performed, we have a society like that.
Yeah.
I get paid
That's
as long as I perform. If I don't perform well, I don't get paid anymore.
Yeah.
And that trickles down to the family and our relationship with our children. And we say, if you don't perform, I don't love you anymore.
My goodness.
And our kids go away with that feeling, and that's what drives the behaviors we've got today.
That's right.
You can't change behaviors by simply beating up kids. You change behaviors by changing their hearts, by reaching the inside. The external is not going to change until the internal changes.
I love that.
And there's only one person that can get inside of us, and that's God and His Holy Spirit. And then through us, as I love my child, as I love my spouse, basically that's God's love working through me and making a major impact in them and making them feel like, allowing them to feel like, enabling them, giving that strong feeling that they are loved and accepted for who they are, not what they did, not whether they got an A or an F,
Right.
or whether they were the star on the football team or whether they were just the water boy. Doesn't make any difference.
That's right. That's
I
right.
love them anyhow. I love my spouse no matter whether she burned the food or not.
You had to go there, didn't you? Well, you mentioned a couple of very, very powerful points, Mr. Roger. One of the things that you said when we were hearing from our sponsors, you talked about a statistic, a very recent statistic on the number of couples that are not married, the percentage of couples that are not married, which was very disappointing to me. Share that information with us in hopes of you really understanding how critical having healthy marriages is to the overall family unit and then to our world.
It's really important to, the statistic I was talking about, I probably won't get the numbers exactly right because I just happened to hear it on the radio yesterday, but it's apparently a new report coming out. I don't know if it's a new study, but they were looking at couples that are married and they looked at the lower class, middle class, upper class, and then they looked at the middle class, which is where a lot of us are, and basically what they found that was in the 60s, approximately, I'll say 90%, that's plus or minus a few, approximately 90% of all couples in the middle class were married. It is now below 50%. It's 48%, if I remember correctly, in 2010. So it's almost half of what it was 50 years ago. Now, you wonder, on the one hand, what has happened to bring us to that point? But on the other hand, you look at what that means.
That's right.
When you got couples that are together, they're not married, they're simply in a contract, which is a conditional love, which says, I will love you, I will keep my contract. You know, it's like a house contract to buy a house.
Yeah.
I'll buy the house as long as we don't find any problems with it, and as long as you make your payments and all that kind of stuff. Well, we look at marriage the same way. Or rather, we don't call it marriage anymore. They're simply two people living together in kind of a contractual arrangement. They'll probably share some of the bills and all that, but if somebody doesn't pay their bill, part of the bill, they're gone.
Hit the road, Jack.
Yeah, and we've got a lot of couples that are thinking that way now.
That's right.
Even, unfortunately, married couples now. It's spilled over into the couple that's gone through that initial ceremony that says it's not a contract, it's a covenant, it's for life. But, you know, if you don't make me happy, the conditional love, if you don't make me happy, we're going to do something about it.
And what you were saying is that no one, or at least not enough people, are impressing upon us the importance of marriage and the value of marriage. And just as long as you're together, you know, man and a wife or whatever, you can get together. So what? You know, in terms of how it impacts the children. So what is the attitude of how it impacts all of the decisions that we're having to make with regard to our family and our children. And we're certainly facing some real consequences right now, I believe, as a result of the breakdown of our marriages and our family unit. And we've got to fix that.
Well, and when you go back to the root cause, once again, I think is, and you used the word commitment, a lot of couples, we don't understand what commitment means anymore. Commitment is something that I'll do as long as it's comfortable for me.
It's very true.
But commitment, really, I think about people who have gone into war, and commitment was basically their lives. And they said, I'm there for my buddy, I've got his back, I'm there no matter what. I am committed to the point of even death. But now we aren't even committed to the point of uncomfortable. And we're committed as long as we're comfortable. And if we would simply emphasize the importance of commitment, our kids are seeing that.
That's right.
They see that if their parents can't commit themselves to a marriage, then why should they commit themselves to anything? And you wind up saying nothing really matters.
Yeah.
And if nothing really matters, then life itself isn't important.
Which, again, goes back to why we're seeing so many young people who don't value others' lives.
That's right.
Because in their minds, no one values theirs. And I want to let you know that on February the 29th, we will have a very special broadcast of Education Matters on my radio program. February 29th, we'll be talking with former gang members, and they'll be sharing with us why children do join gangs and what we can do as a community to come together and help heal our land with the Holy Spirit. Okay, God is the only one that can do the healing, but we can certainly do our part to help out. All right? We're talking about making love last. After a few words from our sponsors, we're going to bring this home a little bit, and we're going to go through a little checklist to help you out, okay? Don't change that dial. We'll be right back.
I lead a busy life, but I still have to make sure my family eats right. And everybody loves Don's Seasoning Delight. I use Dawn's on meats and vegetables. It's healthy, tastes great, and it's simple to use. It's like having a chef in a bottle.
My seasoning is available at Kroger, Buy Low, Food Line, Roots, and Harvest. Look for it on display in the meat department. Also visit seasoningdelight.com for information and recipes. Dawn's Seasoning Delight. It's so good.
Tired of hearing automated answering services when you have questions about auto, home, renters, motorcycle, or life insurance? Call the Bryant Insurance Agency, where you will always receive a representative ready to answer your questions and provide friendly customer service just for you. Call today for a quick quote at 803-642-8505 or visit us at 909 Daugherty Road in Aiken. Takia and her staff are ready to serve you.
Total women's health care means treating the women physically, emotionally, and everything in between. At Magnolia Medical Women's Center, we treat and diagnose common and unusual medical problems related to female health. Magnolia Medical Center is a premium high-level obstetrics and gynecology clinic for women of all ages. Our clients receive the time they deserve without feeling rushed and unimportant. We are located in the Aiken Medical Center, 410 University Parkway in Aiken, Suite 2300. Call us today at 803-649-6366.
Does your child or grandchild need help in reading or math, or can benefit from preparatory coursework for the HSAP, ACT, or SAT? If so, contact the Barner Group Educational Associates. Our staff specializes in formatting an individualized approach to assisting your child academically. We offer low-cost tutorial services and educational programs. Participants may qualify for free services. To learn more, call for Alicia Cuthbertson of the Barner Group Educational Associates, 1-888-TBG-3996.
Welcome back inside of the broadcast. Today, again, we're talking about making love last. We know that many of you have celebrated Valentine's Day. Maybe you don't have a Valentine. I'd submit to you that as long as you are still here on this earth, you're watching us or you listen to the radio broadcast, then you are loved. Somebody loves you. And Roger Rollins and I believe that is certainly God. God is love. Love is not only a feeling, but it's also an action. And I truly believe that if more of us took the time to love one another, to explore the real meaning of love, loving ourselves, then we can certainly love others despite their flaws, despite their shortcomings. Then we can certainly, I believe, help our children to see that their life has value because we value them and we value each other through love. So Roger Rollins is going to help bring some closure to today's discussion. I have thrown him a curveball here. I've got a little list, and we shared with you this list before. I call it Donna's Relationship Stoplight. And he's going to address some things for us to see if we can make our love last, or if you need to stop, put on the brakes, pump your brakes, okay, and go back to the drawing board. So, Mr. Roger, help bring this home for us.
You've asked something difficult here.
Okay.
God is love.
Yes.
But we need to expand on that a little bit more. Let me mention, first of all, for those who are watching the show today, that a lot of what we've talked about is kind of summarized in an article that I wrote that's actually showed up in the paper, the Aiken Standard today. It's in the editorial page, and it talks about the fact that if we really want to deal with the problems we're facing in society today, we need to get back to the root cause. We need to get back to the fact that God is what needs to be infused into our families.
That's right.
And into our schools, and into the marketplace, and into the government. Now, I don't want to get in the discussion about separation of church and state, but the fact that God is active in our lives and loves us, and we need to love others with that same kind of love, must infuse just everything that we do. If anybody is interested in further information about what we're doing through FAMCO, if they would just look up aikenfamco.com, they'll find me on the web.
It's FAMCO.
Correct, FAMCO, and we'll be happy to get with them on whatever their needs might be, whether it's premarital training or whether it's some kind of education for them, marriage enhancement, marriage restoration. Either we can do it or we can refer people to the resources we have.
Yes.
The topics that Donna mentioned, they're very good. Let me say this in prefacing it. We all have our differences. And those differences can be real pluses, or we can let them be minuses. My problem with so much of this is we tend, as individuals, to let differences be a real roadblock.
That's
we
true.
say, because you're different from me, you're wrong. And we use that with color, unfortunately.
Yes.
We use that with social status. We use that with abilities in schools, A's, B's, and C's. We use that in sports. And we use that in so many different ways. If you like parties and I don't, there must be something wrong with you, you know, because you like parties and I don't.
Right.
We need to recognize as individuals and as couples together that just because my spouse is different from me doesn't mean she's wrong. In fact,
Why
I think
you have to use she?
I'm
Could
sorry.
be he.
Well, you're right. I have trouble looking at it from the female perspective, so I put my own my male
I got
glasses
him, didn't I,
on.
Miss Cindy?
Hey, he, she.
Oh, man.
I don't like the he,
There
she
you go.
either. So we need to make sure that we love our spouse and their differences, not in spite of their differences.
Yeah.
Because that's what makes life exciting. I mean, even the party versus the non-party. If both of them will give a little bit and the non-party goer will go to a few parties, that person, he or she, might even enjoy it.
You can have a party at home with the
And
two of
that's
you.
the other one.
Yeah.
Can say, well, look, I don't want to go to your, let's have a party at home.
That's
It's just
right.
the two of us. Let's have a party. So Donna
Oh,
mentioned
man.
several things. If the mates have different spiritual beliefs, now that can be a real problem.
Yes.
They've got to have the same set of values. Because if one of them says, I believe this, and the other one says, well, I believe that, and they're arguing between the two of them, there may not be any way to resolve that. If one of them, it's the typical discussions as we have in church about whether you're going to baptize sprinkling or you're going to baptize immersion. You get hung up on the differences when they're really not all that important,
Yes.
at least in my mind.
Very true.
Okay, and
very
so many
true.
other things in marriage. More differences than similarities in general. And that gets back to the point I was making.
Right.
That's what makes life exciting. My wife and I are very different in a lot of ways. But over our 45 years of marriage,
Oh, my goodness.
we've learned that that's exciting.
Ooh, I got to ring my bell. 45 years. Good Lord.
I think probably it's been a challenge for both me and my wife. We've had to learn to put up with each other and our differences.
Yes.
And that makes it exciting.
Yes, it does.
And the mate is extremely possessive or jealous. That can be a real problem because what that demonstrates is a conditional love, really. I don't trust you unless you're willing to give me all of your attention. If you're
It's a
looking
red
at
flag,
anybody else,
people.
well, and unfortunately, this world causes us to think that way because we've focused on self, and if you aren't focusing on me,
Yep.
then I'm jealous.
That's
and
right.
There must be something wrong with our relationship, and the unconditional love says, I'm going to love you. You can, within reason. I'm going to trust you always. And I certainly, let me give an example. Whenever I meet with another person of the opposite sex, I'll meet in a neutral place, and my wife knows about it.
Yes.
On the other hand, she's
Smart
not jealous. She doesn't worry about it.
Yes,
And I try to
that's
encourage
an
that
excellent
trust.
example.
So I try to make sure that I encourage the trust that she
Yes.
has in me.
That's right.
And
I
you've got a
love
lot
that
of other
example.
examples here. I don't know how much time we have left
You
to
got a
cover
couple
them.
more. Go through a couple
Well,
more.
let's see.
Fine. Go
Differing
back to
views
that
on raising
slide
and having
down,
children.
James.
Now that's an exciting one. One of the questions we ask in our premarital surveys is, how many children do you want to have? And one of them says none, and the other one says 5. Then we know we've got a point of discussion.
Right.
Now, obviously, neither one of
I'd
them
say
is right
so.
or wrong. But before they get married, certainly after they get married, they need to resolve that and decide, well, how many children are we going to have? Or they will continue to argue. Because, again, it's not a matter of right or wrong. It's just a matter of they need to come together.
Yes. Well, Mr. Roger, if you could, I again want to thank you so much for being with us today. Give our viewers your contact information again, should they be inclined to need a workshop. Maybe you need a one-on-one session or a workshop for your church. FAMCO is definitely an excellent resource.
And we can be reached at www.aikenfamco, Aiken, A-I-K-E-N, everybody knows how to spell that, famco, F-A-M-C-O.com.
Wonderful.
And on that is our phone number and some additional information about the resources we provide either for couples that want to get married or couples that are married and want some help or churches that would like some training or some help in their programs.
Excellent. Well, thank you again
Donna,
for being with us. At this moment in time, I'd like to share with you an editorial that I call Remember the Time When You Fell in Love. And this is a tribute to my Valentine, and that is my husband, Don. And I have hopes that you will go back to your relationship, look at your relationship, and remember the time. I still remember as if it were yesterday the first time I saw the man who would eventually become my husband. The Savannah River site would not only be the source of our income, but little did we know at the time we would both find love there, as neither of us had experienced before. Excuse me while I remember. The instant attraction stimulated such a curiosity which caused us both to yearn for more, although neither of us was looking for commitment. Sidebar, God's plan will always work out better than the best laid plans of man. We eventually began a full, loving courtship lasting over 3 years. Lunch breaks and dinners were spent talking about the Lord, the world, and family. Don called it dropping seeds. In other words, he wanted to make sure I could handle a man like him. Amazingly, we shared similar philosophies about spirituality, life, and what was truly important in life. Days and nights were filled with laughter, and still are, as we continued to date. Many of our dates included our children, his son and daughter, and my son, trips to the zoo, theme parks, restaurants, and church. All the while, the seeds of friendship were nurtured into a blossom of love, eventually rendering us inseparable. Just remembering those times make me fall in love with him all over again. Remembering the good times for us is a mere glimpse to only yesterday, because much of how we interact today mirrors how we were during the dating years. We each fell in love with the person whom we could accept for years to come. And I'm going to skip over and just say to you, remember the time when you fell in love? What looks like a question is really a command designed to help bring us all back to reality of what's really important in life. Remember the time when you fell in love. Making love last. You got to put some effort into it. It's not always going to be easy, but it's definitely worth it. All right, thanks so much for tuning in to Education Matters. My name is Donna Moore Westby, your host, where we're connecting you to the world of education one step at a time. Have a great day. Love, love, love. All right.
If you are interested in becoming an individual or corporate sponsor of Education Matters or to receive sponsorship information, call Donna Moore Westby at 803-507-6793 or send an email to dwesby@edmath.com.